Yes, there has to be some kind of potential in every artist, but then your journey as an artist is one of education and is one of learning all the time. And sometimes that's learning on your own and sometimes it's learning with other people. But it's always, you have a destination in your journey, which is to improve.
Welcome to Not a Real Artist, a podcast by me, Iris Fritschi-Cussens.
And me, Tamara, Sagathevan, discussing relatable creative topics with honesty and humour.
In this episode, we've got an amazing guest who I just draw from my pool of friends and go like, who would be interesting? And the answer is everybody, because apparently I collect interesting people. So this person, if you don't know, I am in a choir, which I love very much. And the person that we have got on our episode today to have an interesting conversation with is my musical director, Eamonn O'Dwyer. And he is our very, very talented musical director. He arranges our songs and is just overall a very nice, kind, encouraging and very talented person. And also, this is the main reason for inviting. He's also really funny. Sorry, you're going to have to live up to all of this now.
No pressure.
Well, I hope you get like some good part in the next concert. Otherwise, this podcast has been a waste of time.
Oh yeah, of course. That's what this is for.
So a solo. This is what we're going for, a solo in the next concert.
Well,
okay.
I think Eamonn knows that I want no solo.
Yes, I do.
Go away. No solos. Yeah. So hi, Eamonn. Welcome, and please introduce yourself briefly for those listeners who don't know you.
Hello, thank you for having me. Yes, my name's Eamonn O'Dwyer, and among other things, I am a composer and lyricist and sound designer and musical director. I'm living in Southeast London. I write loads of different kinds of music. I write everything from crossover classical to electropop to musical theatre to abstract sound design. And I work in obviously live music and choral stuff, but also the theatre and film and TV. And recently I've started doing theme park attractions and installations. So it's kind of a broad palette of music and sound that I create.
I'm going off topic, probably, but you said theme park.
I know.
What is it? Like, that's so exciting. Do you mean like the actual music for the theme park when you walk in, like the ambience? Or
yeah, so I've just finished working on a roller coaster in Virginia. I mean, maybe I'm not even supposed to be talking about it, but let's get away with it. I'm sure we'll be fine.
So like a roller coaster in Bleep Bleep.
In Bleep Bleep.
Yeah, okay.
In Bleep Bleep. And yes, I've created all of the soundscapes. So everything that you hear while you're in the queue, all the sound effects, the kind of building of ambience and tension as you go through the queue, because you're in the queue for like an hour and you're on the ride for like 90 seconds, sorry. So it's all about building up the tension and the excitement. And then obviously the ride is full high octane thrills. And then you have a kind of calming down period. So it's a whole kind of musical narrative. I love musical storytelling.
I want to share with you like my favorite roller coaster music. I'll send it to you after. Like I feel like I'm so excited because this is a very niche interest of mine. I love theme park music. It's so interesting. And it's so like once you get into it, like, because when you experience it, I think, oh God, we're going so off topic, but it's fine. It's really interesting to me. When you're in the queue and you're not aware of these things, you're just like, oh yeah, like that's some background music. And then once you understand how people have shaped the experience of the queuing, of what you hear, what you see, how you're experiencing the ride, everything you just said, it's like it comes alive with this extra layer of depth, and I think it's very exciting. Theme parks.
What I love about it is that people don't realise how they're being made to feel by the music. Often, I mean, the number of people that I've said I'm writing a roller coaster, and people are like, is there music on roller coasters? And I'm like, yeah, every single one. But they don't realise that
they have such different characters.
Yeah,
roller coasters have different characters. Yeah, I'm a really big roller coaster nut, so this is like,
oh, great.
This is really exciting to me. Yeah.
Well, I'm that idiot in the queue who has never paid attention to the music, and that's why I'm like really excited because I never thought about it. Cool. When I go to a theme park, I will listen.
Have a listen. Hopefully it'll be one of mine if I get a few more in there.
The other day you asked so what are we going to talk about? And I said, well, I'm not going to tell you because like I don't want to preempt anything. But then I said, oh, well, I want to talk about inspiration. And you said the most hilarious thing. Do you remember what you said?
I do. I remember what I said, and I'm ashamed for it.
Oh no, because I thought it was great. Do you want to say it, or shall I say what I remember you saying?
Yeah, go on then.
Okay, what I remember you saying is, I don't get inspired, I just get paid.
Yeah, that is what I said. I'm not like hearing it back out loud. I'm like, ooh.
Is that not a type of inspiration, though?
I mean, yeah, it is. Paying your rent is very inspiring. I mean, I've made, I suppose my career's shifted in the last 10 years because before I was, I'm lucky enough now to be a full-time composer, but for a long time, I was a hobby composer. I still worked in the theatre. I was a performer, but I would be, performing other people's music and other people's words on stage. And then in my spare time, writing my own. And now my sort of axis has shifted and I've stopped performing and I write my own stuff and people pay me for that. So I'm hugely lucky. But what it's meant is that I have less time for personal projects because I'm lucky enough to be working on commissions and things all the time. And I don't have another thing that I'm doing to bring in money. I mean, Iris, I run our choir and a couple of other groups around the city. But yeah, it is all about, it's going job to job rather than idea to idea, if that makes a difference.
I think the way I interpreted it as well was that when you are getting paid for a job, you don't sit around going like, oh gosh, well, I'll work on this job when inspiration strikes. It's like, no, you just like, you've got this commission, you're gonna do it whether inspiration strikes or not, because this is your job. You just gotta switch it on, even when it might not be one to switched on in the same way that we might romanticize inspiration. I
mean, there's nothing more inspiring than a deadline. You have to deliver something and there are people waiting for you to deliver it. So you can't hang around waiting for inspiration to strike. I'm not sitting in my artist's garret smoking Gauloise and waiting for an idea. You've just got to do something. And sometimes you might not like the thing you've done. And sometimes, as has happened to me, I've scrapped it all and started again. I think also what's slightly different about what I do is that I'm always telling stories with my music. So there is always a story for me to tell before I've written anything. So let's say I'm writing a underscore for a play and the director has said, I'd really like some music under this scene. Well, I've got the scene. I've got the text of the scene. I know what the scene is about. So I already know, is it sad? Is it happy? Is it major key? Is it minor key? Where are the shifts in it? I'm fitting myself into a structure that exists. Rather than, as some composers, if I was writing a string quartet that doesn't have, it's not about anything, it's just a string quartet in F sharp minor, that takes more inspiration as we know it, because you've got nowhere to start, if you like. Whereas I've always got a jumping off point for a story or a roller coaster or a song in a musical.
I think that's really interesting because one of the things that I think can be intimidating about art, like art, any kind of art form, is that sometimes it feels as if there's so many options available. And especially if you're saying like, okay, I want to make art from like the depths of my own soul, but like, geez, where do you start? What's it going to be about? What's your medium? What's your mood? What's your message? Yeah. Tamara.
No, I'm just thinking how I really enjoy this. I don't know how to describe it. I don't know what the metaphor is, but for me, it feels like here's a mold already or a sculpture. Now go and paint it. I want it to look happy. And you would use the colors that would evoke happiness. So what I'm trying to think about while you guys are talking is how would I bring that into my own art practice? Because it feels very freeing, actually, to already have the sentences of the story that I would like to tell and then work around it. It's not something I would do all the time, but I know myself and I know the kinds of stories I want to tell. So why can't I already have all those sentences put out and then say, hey, this is the story I want to tell now. I got shafted at work. Here's what it should look like. I think that would be very freeing for me, especially when I'm reluctant to dig into myself or dig into my mind and find out what that stuff is. I don't have enough energy or I'm fatigued. So I was just trying to think, what that would look like.
And I think also what that makes me think of is how sometimes, I mean, this is what I do as an artist, or what I see myself doing rather than what I do consciously. It's like, I think I'm telling the same story again and again, but experimenting with how I'm telling that story. You know, am I expressing it today in a art journal or on a standalone painting with acrylics or with like mixed media, or you know, maybe I'm writing with words. And do you find that, Eamonn, I think probably more in your personal work, that you approach that thing that it is that you want to say, or that you want to, that you're interested in exploring, but from different kind of viewpoints or different approaches?
There's always an element of you and how you're feeling at any one time that bleeds into your work. But what I always find, and this is, again, why I'm sort of every day chuffed to do what I do, is that even if let's say I'm underscoring a death scene in a film, and it's got to be really miserable and really, you know, really hard hitting, if it's going well and I like the idea, then that's going to bring me joy while I'm doing it. So I can derive huge joy from writing incredibly sad music just because I think I've hit the nail on the head. And I can be writing, you know, a scene with a character skipping through a field of daisies in the sunshine. And if I don't think I'm doing a very good job of it, I'll be really pissed off the whole time. So there can be this absolute dichotomy with what I'm producing and how I'm feeling. But generally speaking, when things go well, when I feel like it's working, that lifts me spiritually. God, we've got into spirituality already, but yeah, it is that.
I relate to what you're saying, because I feel like a lot of the time the work that I do is very, you know, it can be very dark and very kind of raw and stuff. But that doesn't mean that I necessarily feel miserable whilst I'm doing it, because when I'm really into it and it feels really right, I'm just like riding that wave, and it just feels, interesting. I don't know.
I know I'm supposed to talk because I'm on a podcast, but I'm just thinking, which is often what happens here. I don't know. I find it interesting because to me, it's like, is it because it sounds pleasing to you that you might enjoy it? Or is it because it's touching something else? Because for me, I find sound like a very difficult thing to process. But like visually, you know, it's easy for me. Yeah, that looks nice, according to me.
Yeah. I mean, my work is so much about matching sound to visuals. So, you know, in a film, that's distilled right down to its essence, which is, you know, that person raises their hand and I'll shape the sound to go with the raising of the hand or the raising of an eyebrow or an intake of breath or the click of a phone going back on its receiver. Like anything, it's minute. You know, in theatre, it's slightly broader brushstrokes because it's live every night. The joy comes from it. You just going, oh yeah, that's really good. I've done a really good job there. And frustration also when you can't make it work, when you can't find the right sound for a moment or an emotion.
It's probably a commission. If you were doing something with the raising of the hand or whatever, now you think you've done a really good job. Mm-hmm. And it comes back and maybe, I don't know, has that ever happened to you? Maybe they don't think you have done such a good job.
Oh my God, all the time.
How do you deal with that?
I mean, yes, collaboration. Here we go. That's a really funny thing because theatre particularly is one of the most collaborative art forms. You know, no one person can make a piece of theatre. You need an actor, a writer, a designer, a director, a composer, stage management. You know, there's a whole load of people going into one thing. However, me, when I'm making the music, that's just me on my own. I don't really collaborate with anyone for my little element of it, but then I have to offer that to people in a room and say, hey, here's what I'm adding to this delicious stew. Does this taste right? And somebody will go, oh my God, I love that flavor. And somebody will go, yeah, not for me. And so, you know, you the head chef piece of theatre is the director. And yes, very often are given the feedback that it isn't quite working. And again, that comes from working in different media. So if I'm creating a piece of music, a piece of pre-recorded music for a theatre show, likelihood is I'll be in my studio on my own creating it. And then I will either bring that into a rehearsal room or email it to a director and say, hey, have a listen to this or try this with your actors. And that means that I might not be there to experience it, or I might not have seen how the scene is being played out. So I might have imagined one thing in my head and then emailed it to the director, and the director's gone, oh, actually, no, that's not what this scene is about. That's not what we think this scene is about. Or that's not really what this scene is about now because we've rehearsed it for 2 weeks. So you're always not working at cross purposes, but you might be working towards different things. And it's only when you get together that you can go, oh, right, I understand now. But in terms of how you deal with feedback, it's just not taking it negatively. You just go, all right, I understood a different thing, and therefore, okay, I'll try again. Nothing's really wasted. I try to always think that nothing's wasted. If I spend time writing something that ends up not being the perfect fit, then that's still been a useful exercise, and I might have still produced something that I'm proud of and that I like. It might not end up getting used in the final production, but I've still made a thing where there wasn't a thing before. In the words of Sondheim, look, I made a hat where there never was a hat. But then sometimes, if you are given a bum steer by a director and you spend an awful lot of time rating something that you think is really great, and then the director comes back and goes, oh yeah, no, we've kind of changed that now. That's pretty frustrating. Where you've given lots of yourself, and when you've hit a brief that was given and then the brief has changed. That happens quite a lot.
That's frustrating and painful.
Yeah, that's frustrating and painful, but you have to just go, okay. And then you suck it back down inside yourself and you just start again. You have to. But try not to think of it as a wasted thing because you made a thing that you like.
Yeah, and that's like a really useful thing, like for people who might not be musicians here, who are just painting all the time. Like that for me is it's like a core block in my life. I see people like, oh, I'm going to chuck this in the bin now. No, that experience was not wasted. I get why you might have an aversion to what you've created.
Yeah.
But you've either learned what you don't like or what you can do better or how to just make the process easier.
And you've spent the hours.
Yeah.
You've spent doing the work.
Mm-hmm.
I spent 4 days. Don't talk about it. No, talk about it. I've spent 4 days doing an animation, which was absolutely fucking shit. It was just it was so terrible. And I just couldn't let it go like a dog with a bone. But eventually I realized I learned that animation is hard. I'm still shit at it because whatever, I'm new. But it was such a nice reframe because if I didn't do that, I wouldn't have been able to carry on and get the job done. So just kind of look at everything that you do as not a waste. That's my advice, not Eamonn's.
Well, no, I mean, it's mine. It is mine too. Like, sometimes people say to me, oh, you could reuse things. And I very rarely do that because every project is sort of individual. And whenever I've tried to shoehorn one thing into something else, it's just never felt right. But you're always honing your craft, aren't you? Even if you've created a thing that you don't like in the end, that's valuable time learning what you don't like, valuable time learning what works and what doesn't.
And even when you're recreating everything from scratch all the time, you're still reusing all that knowledge from before. There isn't really such a thing as scratch. And I know like trying to shoehorn something into something else doesn't work, but it's also okay to recycle. Maybe not when you're getting paid and you feel some, I don't know, maybe if you feel some aversion or some ethic, I don't know, whatever you might feel. I have no ethics and morals, just by the way. My name's Tamara. But I do like reusing and recycling my own stuff. And art and music, I get it. It might be a little bit different.
But also, like you say about getting paid, but like people reuse their own stuff all the time. And I think that when you think about it, like that's just style. Like you can listen to John Williams and you're like, not knowing that it's John Williams, and like you're like, oh, that sounds like John Williams, or like Handel, or like there's so many musicians who have their, or Vivaldi, like where you get like, oh yeah, the little violin thingy is like that.
Yeah.
All my ghetto people out there, look at these two people talking about Sondheim and Vivaldi. It's like Tupac. It's just Tupac and who else is a great rapper and Big Money. There must be somebody named Big Money.
There's probably several people named Big Money.
I did not stalk your choir group. I happened to watch the Instagram video with the guy rapping. Was it Jingle Bells? It was a Christmas song.
A beatboxer. And that was the lovely Andy Frost who beatboxed. Yes, it was Ding Dong Merrily on High.
Well, I liked it. I liked it very much. But what I liked most especially, and I'm going to get racial here, is I saw it from the back and I saw a lot of older looking people with a certain, with strawberry-colored ears. And they were grooving. And I was like, this is such an awesome idea. Like, I would think traditionally, maybe you guys don't beatbox in the church or wherever you guys were doing it, that you would introduce this method that can actually make people feel a connection to a culture that is sometimes a little bit separate.
Yeah, maybe.
What inspired that? How did that come about?
I'm going to quote Sondheim again to answer that question. He was once asked, if you could bottle an element from the theatre, what would it be? What would you distill down and save as a thing? And he said, surprise, the element of surprise. So I always think about that as especially in, music and theatre, which is a live art, it's happening in real time. Oh my God, you're both writing that down. I love it. So I think about that a lot because, theatre and music, they're live, they're happening in real time, and you want to surprise people. And particularly, with our choir, we're doing a Christmas concert, and a Christmas concert in a church, there comes certain expectations with that. So we threw in an Away in a Manger, we threw in a Silent Night, we threw in a Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas. Those things that people want and expect. But then there's always a nice moment of going, oh, we're gonna do a little something just to thrill people. So we did Ding Dong Merrily on High, and we did 3 verses of it, and we did verses 1 and 2 like super trad. Everyone in very clipped Victorian English pronunciation. And Andy was standing up there at the front, and I could feel, you can feel the audience behind you going, what's this guy going to do? What's he going to do? Like, is he going to sing a solo on top? Like, what's going to happen? Is he going to dance? He was holding a microphone, so what? And then this thing happened, and you could feel the room just ignite with surprise. And it's the most thrilling thing. And that's I say that as a performer as well, which I don't now do as often. And I only really now do it with my choirs a couple of times a year. But that's just super exciting when you've done a thing, you've made a thing. And me and my 60 singers and Andy, we're all in on the joke. And then you've got 350 people behind you just going, what? It's the coolest thing.
Yeah.
And that's giving people the gift of surprise. And in that context, it's also funny and humorous and lighthearted. And we don't do any original stuff by me. We do arrangements of work. So that's always like arrangements of songs that people will often know. So, in our next concert, we're doing Annie Lennox, and we're doing Aha, and we're doing some Bjork. And we're doing things that people will see in the program and go, oh, I love that song. But then you want to give them something new with it. We're not there doing karaoke. We're there doing our own take on it. So it's offering something new all the time.
No, it makes it exciting both to be in the choir, but it also makes it exciting for me when I invite my friends like to my concert. It's like, yes, I'm asking you to come and listen to me and my choir, but I am also quite sure that you're going to be entertained and surprised and gone like, oh gosh, like I know that song, but I'd never heard it like this. And I think that's really exciting about it.
My understanding of how a choir works is very church-like Pentecostal kind of vibe. And Iris and I were having this discussion because what I wanted to ask about, and I don't know which thread to pull on first, but is this idea of like innate, like God-given talent, where what I saw a lot of the churches in, I believe that every voice is an instrument. And you guys can stone me if you want to, but even the ugly voices, hello, my name is Tamara, I'm from South Africa, can be used to make a cool sound.
Yeah.
But what I noticed is there was this idea of like innate, God-given talent, you're here, you're not, you're this. And I see it in art too. You have to be talented or else you can't do shit. Do you meet a lot of people with that ideology, or is it just me because I come from some backward kind of society? And how do you encourage people if they do come to you with that ideology?
I feel like there's about 12 questions in what you've just said, but I'll attempt to like pick on each one as we go. And for the benefit of those people listening, I'm doing mad things with my hands as I'm like picking at the questions. So innate talent. I mean, yeah, I do believe in it, and I also don't. I come from a sort of cathedral chorister background. That was very much my upbringing from the age of 6 or 7. I started that, and I auditioned to be in Westminster Cathedral Choir in London. at the age of 6 and was given a place. I'd done some singing lessons before that, but I hadn't learned very much about anything. And I was only 6 years old. But, the choir master there was able to see something in me that said, right, yeah, you've got potential. So I must have had some kind of gift, some kind of talent for him to go, yeah, okay, we can work with that. And then I was shaped and molded into the musician that I am today over the next 25 years. Well, I'm still learning. So over the next lots of years, I'm not going to say my age. And now in the sphere of work that I do with Iris and with Iris's choir, I get people coming who are, they're not professional musicians. They've not been doing it all their lives. They're interested in it, and they come, and it's a similar process. Is that, now the choir's been running for longer. We do auditions, so I listen to people before they join, and I make sure that they're going to be able to keep up with us, and that they have enough of a basic grasp of melody and harmony and rhythm, and then, as part of their choir, it's an education. So, we're always talking about vocal production, and it's about blend, and it's about tuning, and it's about singing together as a group. So, yes, there has to be some kind of potential in every artist. And then, and by artist, I mean those of us who do it for money and those of us who do it for joy. But then your journey as an artist is one of education and is one of learning all the time. And sometimes that's learning on your own, and sometimes it's learning with other people. But it's always, you have a destination in your journey, which is to improve. Does that make any sense?
No, it does. I'm just thinking about when you were 6 and you went to Westminster, the famous one, with the boys with the helium balloons. That's all I is my reference point.
We'll unpick that later, but yeah, there's 2 Westminsters. There's Westminster Abbey, which is where the coronation will happen in a couple of weeks' time. That's the Anglican cathedral, and then there's Westminster Cathedral, which is the Catholic one, which is where I was because Irish.
I am making a lot of assumptions about, so just like jump in. I would assume that if you joined when you were 6, you already had many years where you were probably encouraged to sing. Like, hey, Eamonn, you probably you sing well, sing for us, and you were singing, and that was kind of encouraged. So that's why I'm not saying you didn't have talents, but it might have been easier for someone to see potential in you versus a child who's been kind of stifled until they're 6, and then they get there and they've been singing just for 5 minutes, and it might be a little bit more difficult. But I don't know, because some voices are just absolutely beautiful. People open their mouths and you're like. So I don't know. I think for me, I think I just feel a little bit heart sore about this idea of like innate talent, because personally I don't view myself as a very talented person.
Musically or artistically or?
Oh no, musically, artistically, and everywhere else I'm the shit. But I enjoy music. I love music. I like to sing. Iris has like 3 rap tracks of mine, and they're horrible, but I love it. They're hilarious too.
No. Me and my kids were always going like, Tamara, she taught me this. It was boots and cats and boots and cats. And I think that what you're touching upon, I think, is this idea that we've talked about before, which is the idea of gatekeepers. It's like, you need to have a certain amount of talent, and then somebody's going to recognize that, and then you're going to be picked, and then, that's it. And only the people with talent will get picked, and the talent is completely out of your hands, and you can't do anything with that. But I actually like, because I wrote this down as well, where you actually said about the difference between potential versus talent. And when you are, picked at 6 years old, you're picked for your potential, not because you are a fully formed, star singer.
Michael Jackson disagrees, but okay.
Okay, that's fine. He can do that. But I think it's a much nicer way of thinking about it, and also it's a much more inclusive way of thinking about it, because then it's just, do I have the potential, and do I have the interest as well? Because you needed the interest as well in order to then thrive in that opportunity that you were given.
We're also touching on an issue that here in the UK is massive at the moment, which is privilege. And particularly when talking about kids, the provision of music in schools. I was lucky enough to grow up in a middle class, not affluent household, but okay household, where music was important to my parents, and therefore when I exhibited musical talents, I was pushed in that direction, and they could afford private singing lessons for me. But there was also good provision for music in school, and we had private music classes in my state school. So that potential, or that innate talent, whatever it is, had the opportunity to flourish. Whereas now in the UK the provision of music in schools is being eroded year by year as the Tories are cutting funding, and therefore we are not, there are how many generations of kids who are the next Beyonce or Adele or whatever, any of the, whatever kind of musician they could be. We're not discovering those talents because they are not given that opportunity, and families can't afford for private lessons, and therefore that potential is never being discovered even. That's my sort of little anti-Tory rant.
Priti Patel doesn't give a shit about Beyonce. Come on.
None of them give a shit about anything other than themselves.
They don't give a shit about humanity.
No, quite. That's a different thing. But yeah, I was learning music at a time when there was opportunity for me to flourish in school, and I was in a household where there was enough money for me to flourish. I'm very lucky for that.
That's important.
And it's important. It is important.
But you know what I thought about innate talent? That maybe some people, like their actual bodies might be different. I don't know how correct I am. Like their vocal cords and shit, that they could reach different notes or something, and then that makes.
When we're talking about singing, and a lot of it is physiological. I mean, that's the bit you can learn. It's a different thing to be a naturally gifted singer than it is to be a naturally gifted violinist, because you need a bloody violin to show talent on the violin. Whereas, you can sing in the shower, you can sing nursery rhymes, you can sing lullabies, you can sing, it's primal and it's visceral.
It's all like a bit of a jumble in my head. But I just wanted to, because I love talking about like the not clear cut and the lack of confidence that I feel, that I understand that some of the people that I bring to the table as my followers and stuff who relate to that. And that's like, I always want to like talk honestly about that. So first of all, I wanted to say that I knew that you were doing this choir, and because I took a beginner's course from you, Eamonn. And I saw this choir and I was like, oh gosh, what does one have to do to join this choir? And you were like, oh, well, do a couple more courses and then, and then come back to me and then we'll see. So, and that felt like a very, as a not very confident person specifically about my voice, like both speaking and singing, not that you'd know it now, doing a podcast, but it felt like a very... both logical and gentle thing. It wasn't like, oh, well, you got to be able to do this and this. It was just kind of like, okay, go and explore this a little bit more, and then we'll do an audition and then we'll see, kind of thing. And that felt really doable, I guess.
Well, okay, I'm going to jump in on the gentle and doable thing. I mean, I guess I have been running that choir and doing those courses for 7 or 8 years now, and so I've also learned a bit about what encouragement people need in order to progress. Teaching is another skill that you learn, and you only really learn by doing. You can be really, I believe I'm a really good musician, but I've become a really good teacher because I've been doing it for a long, long time, and I've worked with people of all different...
Not just because you've been doing it for a long, long time. I think also because you are genuinely sensitive to people, their experience, and you want people to have a good time. Like, you care about that, and you don't want to put people down and reject them.
But that's also a thing you learn. That's also a thing you learn, I think. You learn how to be sensitive. I've certainly learned how to be insensitive. By accident, going, oh, actually, that probably wasn't a good thing to say. But yeah, like yes. So you, and also, specific to me and this group that we are a part of, is that you learn how the group is evolving and what the group needs. The entry requirements now are a lot more stringent than they were 5 years ago. As we've grown and as we've improved, but because as I said, artistry is education, so we're all learning to be better together.
You guys are like an organism now. You've reached like a new level, so let in.
Very much so. Yeah, it is that. It is a sort of living, breathing organism, and it shifts every week because you get different people in the room and different, combinations of voices, and makes me
And
stressed
Eamon's
when
like
people don't
arranging
turn
stuff
up.
that's so hard now, and it's like he's so excited about the choir being better, and now we have to do like much harder work.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Also because and very sweet what you say about me wanting people to have a good time, but you also know that I expect a very high level of musical excellence, because I also know that
It's more fun when we're good. This is a quote from you.
is more fun when you're good. Exactly. It's more fun when you're good. 100%. But then, when we started 7-8 years ago, it was just like, can we get from the beginning to the end without it falling apart or going down two semitones? So the goals change.
And I'm obviously just accepting the best version that Iris has presented of you today. The difference that I'm getting, like you said before, Iris, about gatekeeping, then this is not gatekeeping. This is actually encouraging someone, wanting them to grow, providing them the education, not saying, hey, you know what, actually, your voice sucks. It's about giving them these kind of like lifelines to hold, or not lifelines, even just pathways to follow. And that's the difference between a gatekeeper and Eamonn O'Dwyer. Did I say everything right?
Bless you, you did. Yeah, excellent pronunciation. Look, talking practically about it, it's also that I work for a business, and I'm an ambassador for that business, and so people come to bleep bleep, and they expect to, I'm expected to treat them with kindness and compassion and warmth and friendliness. Like, that's what that's what you expect as a human being. If they're not the right singer for my choir, there's an expectation from the people who pay my wages that I will be like, okay, so you're not right for this, but try this, so that we're always keeping new business flowing in. That I'm not going, no, you suck, go away, because then that's not only me that they'll think badly of, but that's the organization I work for. That's the business side of it.
Yeah, sure. But I think it's really important, like that, when as a teacher, because all of us are, as well as artists, also teachers, like you're in a really powerful position in a way to influence and shape how people feel about themselves and that thing that they are trying, either trying because they have a passion for it, or trying just because they've got an interest in it, like want to just have a go and have a try. And I'm always very aware of this, especially because in my teaching, I'm always encouraging people to really express themselves and to make their own art rather than to just copy. So, and that's very vulnerable. Like, you're asking people to be very vulnerable. And then as a teacher, you have enormous power to kind of like, an influence over how people will feel about themselves and that art that they're making, or that expression that they are putting out there. And I think that especially for me, when it came to using my voice, like I came from a place as a child of feeling very ashamed of my voice, and feeling like on the one hand, I was encouraged to do some singing and stuff, and on the other hand, I was completely convinced that I was absolutely terrible, dreadful, and should never open my mouth again. And I feel like coming back to that as an adult, and slowly changing that, first by recording myself on video, not singing, just talking, art teaching videos where I'm saying like, I'm painting this or whatever. That was a big step. And then daring to go and take singing lessons and open my mouth and sing in front of other people, even though it was like together, so it wasn't necessarily that people were listening to me individually, but being able to do that in a space where I didn't feel like I was going to be judged, or I was going to be rated, or I was going to be made to feel uncomfortable, or made to feel like all the things I feared about myself were true. That was hugely influential and important to me, actually even daring to say, hey, gosh, this choir, how can I join it? Because otherwise I never would have been able to even dare to think that.
I've said this a lot in my life, but as an educator of any kind, you have an enormous responsibility. It is an enormous responsibility to be an educator, and you know, I'm not a parent, thank God, but you know, it's the same thing. It's one of the reasons that I couldn't ever be a parent is the responsibility is too huge. But you know, I'm an uncle and a godfather, but I'm also a teacher, and all of those things are educational. And you are in a position of educating others, and the number of people who've come to me for singing lessons and they're like, I think I'm shit because so-and-so told me I was shit, because my mum said I couldn't sing, because my singing teacher said I couldn't sing, because my ex-boyfriend said I couldn't sing. And I think singing particularly is, as you say, it makes people vulnerable, and it's so physical and based in a person's physiognomy and what they do with their body and their voice, that when people shit on that, for want of a better phrase, it is so incredibly damaging. And so I've come across that so many times that I'm just like, kindness always and encouragement always. That's the only way. Like, I still don't understand how any teacher can ever think to get a good performance out of a pupil with anything but kindness. I don't understand that. And I know that you're sitting there going, but what about mean Eamonn when he's mean to us? You know, that's tough love. But it is
That's
love.
funny, but I don't experience mean Eamonn because, like, mean Eamonn is the thing to behold. It's like he doesn't come out often, but like before concerts, like when we're doing rehearsal, like, and there's new people who've never done a concert with us before, there's like these whispers that go like, when it's like, don't antagonize Eamonn because he'll become mean Eamonn and he'll shout at you.
Poke the bear. Like, yeah.
But the thing is, I don't experience, because I guess I have faith that you are really a kind person and you do really think well of us and want the best for us. I don't experience mean Eamonn as anything other than like, shut up right now because we're doing something important and I need you to be quiet, or I need you to pay attention. It doesn't feel personal. Like, you're not personally attacking that person. You're just saying, shut the fuck up.
Yeah,
you know? So in that way, it's actually quite easy to take for me, maybe not for other people, but yeah.
No, I mean, I think, you've got a point. It's never pointed at people. It is, it's the organism. It's at the organism. But yeah, like, just going back to that thing of it's all about encouragement and kindness, and with singing, teaching particularly, criticism can be incredibly damaging. So you've got to just be so delicate and sensitive all the time.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Eamonn, for chatting to us today. I felt like it was a very enlightening conversation.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. We went from like roller coaster music to like being a good educator. Like, oh my God. Do you want to let people know where they can find you and, how to support your work?
Yeah. I mean, you can find me on Spotify, Eamonn O'Dwyer. That's EAMONNO''DWYER, in case you were not sure. So I get about 0.0007p per stream. So do listen to my 2 albums on Spotify. They're 2 musicals that I've written. You can listen to a lot more music on my website, eamonnodwyer.com. And you can find pictures of my dinner on Instagram if you like. I'm at
and nice
Eamonn
cocktails
on there too, and nice cocktails. Although I haven't done any of those for a while. But yes, there is occasionally some bits of work on Instagram too. And I'm on Twitter, but I only really complain on Twitter, so don't look at that.
Legit.
But yeah, Spotify and my website, good places to hear what I do.
Yes. Okay. Awesome. I hope everybody's going to go and stream your musicals on Spotify now to get you your 0.007.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, do you know what, guys? If you don't like them, you can just put your laptop on mute and then press loop. That's a really cool way of supporting artists. Just keep me playing on silent all through the night. Thank you.
And with that, let's get into the key takeaways.
1.
Next time you're in a theme park, try and notice the music. You might hear the tension, thrill, and eventually calming effects of the soundtracks, all curated to enhance your experience. This is a concept that you can pull into your own art and visual practices. 2. Getting paid and having a deadline for your artistic work means that you cannot wait for the romantic idea of inspiration to strike. You just need to get it done. 3. Create your own jumping off points for your art, whether it be creating art parts or prompts before you paint to help you get into the work when ideas are thin on the ground. 4. How you feel about your work doesn't always correlate to the subject matter. The work you make can be raw or dark, but that might not spill into how you feel as you create or how you feel about the work after it's done. 5. Theatre is a collaborative art form. Like all collaborative work, it means there could be feedback which could sting if taken negatively. Alternative ways to think about the experience of feedback is: I understood a different thing compared to the person I was working with. And nothing is ever wasted. You're always learning and honing your craft. 6. It's okay to recycle and be inspired by your own work. 7. Sondheim once said that if he could bottle any element from the theatre, it would be the element of surprise. 8. Innate talent might get you to a certain point, but work and learning on your own or with other people will get you the rest of the way. 9. Primary education, positive reinforcement, and encouragement in the child is extremely important. It is our social responsibility to cultivate those access points and spaces for them and ourselves. 10. As teachers in this vulnerable space, which is art making, we have power and influence that must always come with responsibility. 11. The difference between gatekeeping and teaching is massive. Actively encourage and educate those who want to grow and learn, using gentleness and empathy as your mode versus degradation and shame. The details for this episode and our amazing guest can be found on the show notes. Have you had any insights during this episode? Let us know on notarealartistpodcast@gmail.com. If you haven't already, please follow this podcast or rate it and share it with everyone who wants to listen to good shows. Until next time.
It also makes it exciting for me when I invite my friends.
You've never invited me.
Will you come to my next concert, 15th of June?
There.
Book your flight.
That was awkward.
A question that I had
She's always ribbing me like this.
Oh, okay. No, I'm not coming.
Right, okay. And it's still quite awkward.